For thousands of years, people believed the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with death, mummies, tombs, curses. But what if everything you think you know is wrong? What if the pyramids weren't built for death at all, but for something far more terrifying? Because according to ancient Egyptian belief, death wasn't the end. It was a test. And if you failed that test, you didn't go to heaven. You didn't go to hell. You were erased forever. No soul, no memory, nothing. So the real question is, what exactly happened after you died in ancient Egypt? And why were they so afraid of getting it wrong? To understand their afterlife, you have to understand one thing. Ancient Egyptians didn't believe you had just one soul. You had multiple parts. The most important were the Ka, your life force, the Ba, your personality, and the Ak, your transformed, eternal self. And here's where things get strange. When you died, your body couldn't just decay, because your soul needed it. That's why they spent 70 days mummifying the body, removing organs, drying it in salt, wrapping it perfectly. Also, your soul could recognize it and return, because if your body was destroyed, your afterlife was over before it even began. And then came the tomb, not just a grave, but a fully stocked house for eternity. Food, furniture, clothes, even games. Because the afterlife wasn't darkness. It was supposed to be a perfect version of life, but only if you could reach it. Because after death, you didn't just wake up in paradise. You had to survive a journey, a dangerous one, filled with gates, monsters, and tests. And at the center of it all was a moment so intense that even the gods were watching. This journey was called the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, a place of fire lakes, snake creatures, and shadowy beings waiting in silence. To survive it, you needed knowledge, spells, passwords. Yes, actual passwords. That's why Egyptians buried something called the Book of the Dead with the body. A guidebook filled with instructions like, say this to pass the gate. Speak this to avoid being eaten. Miss a line, say it wrong, you don't pass. And here's where it gets even crazier. People spent their entire lives preparing for this. We're talking years of planning, massive tombs, endless rituals, all for a journey no one could guarantee surviving. Imagine this, everything you've ever worked for, every dollar, every hour, all leading to a single moment after death. One test, one decision, and then you arrive. The final judgment, the moment that decided everything. Your heart was placed on one side of a scale, and on the other, a single feather, the feather of truth. If your heart was lighter than the feather, you were worthy. You would enter the eternal paradise, a perfect world called the Field of Reeds. But if your heart was heavier, full of lies, greed, wrongdoing, something horrifying happened. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't fire. It was worse. A creature called Ammit, part lion, part crocodile, part hippo, would step forward and devour your heart. And in that moment, you didn't suffer. You didn't scream. You simply ceased to exist. No afterlife, no second chance. Gone. Forever. And that's why the ancient Egyptians weren't afraid of dying. They were afraid of failing what came next.